The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to Beyond the Headlines. My name is Joyce Duriga, and I'm editor of the Chicago Catholic, the newspaper for the Archdiocese of Chicago. And this is where we go beyond the headlines to talk with the people who are making the news that we're covering in each edition of the newspaper. And today we're talking to Meg Hall. She's the director of the Archdiocesan Archives and Records Center. I'm a huge fan. I love history. I love all this kind of stuff. And the Archives and Records Center is a huge repository of, Catholic history in Chicago and the Archdiocese, and they have all these resources that are available to people for use. So we're going to talk to Meg about all that now. Welcome, Meg. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So for people who don't know that we have an Archives and Records Center, would you explain what it is?
Sure. So we are the repository for the Archdiocese of Chicago's diocesan administration, as well as for closed parishes and schools. So if a parish or a school closes in the diocese, we take in the historic and inactive records of that institution. And then we also have the records for the diocesan administration offices. So records from the chancery dating all the way back to the 1840s, but really dating back to about the 19-teens or so. So that's the office of the bishop, the different offices within the administration, like legal services, the tribunal, facilities office, anybody that's been making records for the chancery or for parishes or schools, we probably have some records here in the Archives and Records Center for them.
And a lot of people interact with you maybe when like a parish closes or a school closes, right? So
yeah.
What does that process look like regarding the archives and records of the school or the parish?
Yeah, sure. So if a school closes, my team and I, myself and usually one or two other people, we go out to the school. We talk to the principal and some of the staff about the records that they have there on site. And then we go back later in the summer and we box up all of the student files. So if you went to a Catholic grammar school or high school that's closed and you remember your teachers or principal talking about your permanent file, we have those permanent files here at the archives office. We also take in any class photos that the school has, any school board meeting minutes, any handbooks, anything that really talks about the history of the school and its students, the neighborhood, and how the school was integrated into the neighborhood. If a parish closes, we do something very similar. So we experienced that a lot over the last few years. And my team and I visited dozens of parishes, packed up their permanent files for marriages that took place at the parish, the different parish bulletins, architectural drawings, any kind of historic photos or documents that document the life of the parish and its parishioners end up here at the archives. And so we visited dozens of sites over the last few years and have been doing this kind of work since the 1980s.
Wow. And then you have some collections. So when we could do a whole podcast about the different collections, but can you talk about those? Maybe start with, with some of the ones with the bishops?
Yeah, sure. So every bishop maintains his own records. He has a staff generally, and every bishop sends us records to the Archives and Records Center. So our oldest bishop's collection is, I guess technically it's Bishop Porter's diary. So Bishop Porter was our first bishop. He came to Chicago in the 1840s, and his diary is here at the Archives and Records Center. And we also have records of every other bishop leading up to the current one that we have, Cardinal Supit. Cardinal Supit's papers are obviously not available to the public, and neither are Cardinal George's. We do have a statute of limitations for when those records become available. Cardinal Bishop Porter's diary is obviously available for anybody to come and take a look at, as are Cardinal Mundelein, Cardinal Stritch, Cardinal Meyer, Cardinal Cody, and Cardinal Bernardin. And these really document the decisions of the bishop for the Archdiocese of Chicago, all of the different kinds of initiatives that any cardinal put forth and really wanted to focus on. So they're a great representation of what was important to each archbishop, what was important to the diocese at the time, how record keeping changed over time. You see a lot of obviously handwritten stuff with Cardinal Mundelein, who was the archbishop from 1915 to 1939, versus Cardinal Bernardin, who was the archbishop in the 80s and 90s, a lot more typed stuff, a lot more stuff from Cardinal Bernardin too, just because record keeping changed. And we also have a lot of great collections from other diocesan institutions and agencies. So one of my, or even records of diocesan adjacent institutions that maybe became part of the diocese later. So one of my favorite ones, I have two kind of favorite collections. Both of them are mid 20th century. One of them is actually the Cardinal Cody papers. So okay. Cardinal Cody was the archbishop in Chicago from 1965 to 1982. And that was just as a lot of changes were being implemented after Vatican II. So okay. A lot more about the laity involvement in the diocese, and then a lot about civil rights, a lot of activism, a lot of just big changes in the United States in the mid 20th century. So I think his collection is great to highlight and showcase some of those big conversations that were happening on a national level in the mid 20th century. And then another collection that's sort of similar is from the Catholic Action Federations, which is the precursor to a diocesan office called the Office of the Laity. And it was doing the same kind of thing, but on a smaller scale. So it was trying to invigorate the laity of the 1950s to get training about how to work in parishes, a lot of stuff on Catholic work, Catholic workers and young Christian workers. And again, that's a mid 20th century collection that I think is, again, very representative of what the entire country was kind of going through at the time. So even if you think there might not be something in the Catholic diocesan archives that's useful to non-Catholic researchers, we really have a lot of stuff that just is representative of large cultural changes, migration patterns, anything that a big city is going through. I think that we have a collection to kind of match what the city was going through.
What are the years for the Catholic Action? At first, when I was looking through, I thought it was like Catholic worker, but it's different. What are the years that sort of encompasses?
Yeah, it's the 50s and 60s, but it kind of petered out toward the 1970s. And at that point, the office, it just shifted gears and it became the Office for the Laity. So it had started out as these like different sections within the Catholic Action Federations. There was the Young Christian Workers. There was something just called Young Christian Students, I think. And then there was the Catholic Action. And those kind of shifted gears by the time the laity became much more involved in general. You didn't really need these three separate functions, I guess, and it just changed to a different office. And that happens a lot too, which is also interesting, I think. We have a lot of records here for not only for institutions like parishes and schools that don't exist anymore, but offices within the diocese that don't exist anymore or have changed so considerably since their beginning to what they are now, which is a great resource for anybody who's interested in diocesan history too, or administrative history in general.
Which begs the question, back on Cody, just a little plug. So he changed our name to Chicago Catholic. We were the New World since 1892, the year before the Columbian Exposition. It had a whole relationship to that. And then he changed us to Chicago Catholic, and then Bernardine changed us back to the New World. George added, Cardinal, sorry, I should not use your last name, be proper. Cardinal George added Catholic, and then Cardinal Supage changed us back to Chicago Catholic. So that's how I always think of Cody. I'm like, hey, first to change our name. So that leads to the question, like, I mean, I know I can come over there because I'm, staff and stuff, but can anybody go over? Like, it's just such people who are really into history, can they make an appointment and come over and look through those collections?
Yes, definitely. So we're open by appointment only because we're not always here every day. I was just looking out into the reading room. We have somebody coming in this afternoon who's planning for his 50th reunion from Niles College, which was a seminary in Chicago. It was affiliated with Loyola University for a time. And he made an appointment, so he'll be in this afternoon to look at the collection that we've got for Niles College, photos, yearbooks, things like that. And we get a wide variety of people that come, I would say. So we have a decent number of family historians and genealogists who want to come and view the sacramental records that we have for the different parishes. These date back to the 1830s, and we've made them accessible to anybody who wants to come and see them on microfilm. Here at the office, those are accessible up until 1915, so the beginning of the diocese, the beginning of the city of Chicago to 1915. And then we also have college students, graduate students, writers. We have someone, this is very interesting. We have someone who's working on I think it's a film that's based around a former priest at St. George Parish in Tinley Park.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's coming in a few weeks because she wants to know more about that church, more about him, anything that we know about his family, and then anything about the pattern of Catholic Chicagoans moving from the city to the suburbs in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And so that's a pretty wide scope that she's looking at, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have something for her. And that's just a person who's working on something that I would have never, I don't assume that too many filmmakers are going to come in and view the materials here, but she called and anybody's welcome to come.
Now, so do you have, is it all this in your brain, or do you have, how do you know all this stuff? It's amazing.
A lot of it is in my brain.
It's the nature of the archivist, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. That is part of being the archivist at any corporation or any cultural institution. One of the things that you try to do as an archivist when you first start is what they call intellectual control of a collection. So we have a pretty big collection here. We have a warehouse on in the West Loop. That's where we're located. It's a 2-story warehouse building right around the corner from.
You can see it when you're driving on the Jane Byrne. It's right next to Old St. Pat's. So wave when you get
there.
past,
Yeah, the big gray warehouse that's very nondescript, which is a good thing. And one of the things that you try to do, or what any archivist tries to do when they're starting, is just learn what the collections are. What do we have? Who are the key players? How much stuff is there? Where does all this stuff come from? And so I've been here since 2008. So again, a lot of the stuff is in my brain, but I look up, certainly not all of it. I look up so much stuff. So I don't know where anything is in the building. We have a database that has lists and data about every box we have in the building. Everything is indexed at least by where the box came from, what the general contents are, what the date span is. And so if someone's trying to do research in the Cardinal Cody collection on the Catholic Conference on Religion and Race, then I know I know because I'm obsessed with Cardinal Cody, so I know we have
That's
them
awesome.
here.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Mundelein, so we all pick our cardinals. Yeah.
I think I'm obsessed with. I hate to use the word obsessed, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That was the first big collection that I worked on, so I know it really well. And that's another thing about processing, and part of being an archivist is that you go through these collections, you really learn what's in them, and the more you know about what's in those collections, the more you can help people find what they're looking for. And that includes the diocesan offices too. So, we get dozens of boxes from different offices every year, and we put all of them into our big database. And so if someone needs case number, whatever, from 1992, we know just where to find it in the office and can pull that and retrieve that for them without a problem. But the database that we use, it's not an open, like an outward facing database. So it's not like at a library or at another cultural institution where you can just scroll through the collections. So we make these finding guides, these collection guides available for researchers to look up. That's the page that you'll see that has all of the different hyperlinks on it. Each of those leads to a collection description that anybody can browse and view and come view those materials in person if they want to.
I know I've been over there a couple times because you have our archives. We have in our office, I think it's about till the 60s, we have hard copies of the Chicago, from the 60s till now. But when we want stuff like from the original times, I've been there even when I was working on a book on Father Tolton to look up Tolton stuff. And I know I refer people to you all the time that'll say, well, I'm looking for this story from 19 something something. And I'm like, well, here's the Archives and Records Office, you can go down there. But what I want people to know, if you're listening, you want to go see something in the New World, you got to know your date. Like, we don't have it digitized so that you can just, search. Because we used to have like a big football section, right, or sports section. You can't just go in and Google search it, so you have to kind of narrow down. But it's super. I mean, I just know from the newspaper stuff, to shout out to that, people can go and read the news. I mean, it's so fascinating to see just the advertisements on what was advertised back, in 1901, or and learning about. We did stuff. I came down for Mother Cabrini because it was the anniversary of her canonization, and the coverage from that. And then there was a war going on at the time, so I was reading about chaplains and people, some of our priests being sent overseas, and it's just super fascinating what is available at the archives, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I love the newspaper. It's on microfilm, and so it can be kind of tough to look through for a really long time. So having a date is extremely helpful. I was just looking into something Tolton related not too long ago.
Okay.
Somebody was trying to find citations for particular dates, and she just wanted to see, what was the diocese like in the 1890s when Tolton was at St. Monica. And so she was just scrolling through, and in the 1890s, this was 1894 to 1898 or so, the Catholic newspaper, the diocesan newspaper, was really it felt like a world newspaper.
It was, yeah.
There's world events in there. There's a lot of national coverage of news. It's much more than just what was going on in the diocese, but there's also, the CYO page toward the back, and the obituaries of priests who'd served in the diocese and have, or maybe had moved on. It's again, these collections, it's much more than you would initially assume, I think. If what you're thinking about the diocesan archives is kind of a dusty building that just has records of the bishops that are just talking about things that are happening in Chicago, or just, rosters and rosters and rosters of parishioner information from the churches that we have. It's so much more than that. Again, as I keep saying, that Chicago is a huge city. At one point, I think that the Archdiocese of Chicago was the second largest, maybe, Catholic school system in the country. So more Catholic students enrolled in Chicago than in, certainly in Chicago public schools. And so it's just a great source for information about what the city and what people have been like over time.
So we talked about two of the collections. What are some of the other maybe surprising things that maybe you have there, or some other favorites? I mean, I could talk about this all day. I love this kind of history stuff, but like some fun things that you guys have or that you want to share with people.
Yeah, let me think. Some fun things. So we were talking offline a little bit. I wish we had more things to show people. We don't have relics. We don't have clothes. We don't have chalices. We don't have things like that. We do have some vestments. We have a throne. We have Mundeleин's throne from the cathedral, which we have that here now. When the cathedral was undergoing renovations under my favorite, Cody, in the 70s. That throne was sent here. So we have that here. It's not on display, but we have that.
I should let Holy Name know, because they're coming up with their anniversary, and starts in November. Yeah. And they've been asking us for stuff.
We have that I think is a great resource that people don't really access all that often is we have all of Cardinal Bernardin's speeches and talks that he
Oh,
gave, even dating back to his Cincinnati days prior to his time here in Chicago. We did a big project. It was before I started here, but Cardinal Bernardin was a real um, a steady reader at the podium. So some archbishops probably prefer to speak more off the cuff. Maybe they'll improvise, maybe they'll have an outline, but they won't read it necessarily. But Cardinal Bernardin brought his paper homilies to the podium, and just he was a speaker, but he had a script. Um, and all of those were written down,
wow.
and we transcribed all of them, and they're all searchable in our database now. And so I think these are great resources for what was going on because he was a national presence too. Cardinal
Yep.
Bernardin was. And he came here from Cincinnati. Prior to that, he was in South Carolina, and he did a he did a lot about
Wasn't he General Secretary at the USCCB?
yes,
U.S.
he
Conference of
was.
Catholic
He
Bishops?
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a lot with like the USCCB's War and Peace pastoral during the Reagan administration. He did a lot. He thought a lot about healthcare and the seamless garment of life
Right.
from conception to natural death. And so those are interesting topics that I still think about and that I still think are very relevant to
Yes.
current Catholics. And we have all of them. And, you know, he's the only archbishop that we have anything like that for. We don't have Cardinal George's, all of his speeches. We don't have all of Cardinal Strich's speeches. But we have all of Cardinal Bernardin's. And I think for someone who was such a national figure to have everything that he said in public accessible for anybody to want to come and see that stuff. Such a beautiful thinker, I think, such a thoughtful person, and just very different from his predecessor. So it's always interesting to see the contrast in what people are thinking about and how they're conveying to the public what their thoughts are.
Is that one of those PDF searchable that's on the website, or is that if I wanted to come or someone wanted to come see that, we would make an appointment to come down?
Yeah, you would make an appointment to come down.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got about 6 minutes left. Who's in the?
Okay.
If you're watching this online, behind you see this picture that's John Paul II. Who else? Who's in the picture with John Paul II?
Oh, that's Cardinal Stritch, actually. This is Cardinal Stritch here.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
And so Cardinal Stretch, I also
Also a big fan. Yeah. He was short.
Yes, he was very small,
Wow.
and he was the Archbishop, the Cardinal here from 1939 to 1958. So just after Cardinal Mundelein, and he was appointed to Rome in 1958, but only served for a month or something like that before dying. But he was very significant with the National Catholic Welfare Conference. And he was the Archbishop during World War II. So when there was a huge, just a huge migrant crisis, and he wrote a lot about that. This was.
So that wasn't John Paul II because that was too late. Which Pope is that? Okay. Yeah, got it.
I wish you could see the photo that I picked and put in front of my desk here. So this was just having to fit on the wall.
Okay.
But the photo that I'm looking at in front of me is a beautiful panorama. Anybody can come and see it of St. Charles Borromeo Parish, which is a closed parish. It was on Hoyne and Roosevelt Road in Chicago. And the photo's from 1926, and it's all of the parishioners and the pastoral staff in front of the buildings. It was all laid out like this. It's probably 4 feet long. And we have a lot of that stuff around here too. I think maybe now at Quigley, Office for Catholic Schools put up a couple of panoramas that are from the archives office too. So they're great, just an interesting format, I think. And it really shows like what church really looks like, I think, when you see everybody lined up in front of a building like that.
So before we go, I got 3.5 minutes. Let me just, I need to give a shout out to the newspaper. So folks who are listening or watching, go to ChicagoCatholic.com. All of our content is posted there. It's searchable. You can see what the Cardinal's up to, what John Paul II is up to. You can subscribe to us online. We're $35 a year. We come out about every 2 weeks. That subscription helps support our ministry. You can follow us on social media, and you can also sign up for our free newsletter. I send that out a couple times a week. And some highlights in this next issue that is coming up when this episode will air. We did a story, there's Port Ministries in Back of the Yards. It's Franciscan spirituality kind of ministry. It's been around for a long time, but they have a free health clinic. It's one of the only ones in the community that serves Englewood, Gage Park, McKinley Park, Back of the Yards. And so people underinsured, uninsured, they don't ask you for ID, anything like that. It's just a neat, wonderful, beautiful ministry. You can find out about that. There's also up in Indian Creek on the north part of the diocese, Archdiocese, St. Mary Vernon Parish, St. Mary of Vernon Parish in Indian Creek does, for 30 years, they've done a furniture ministry. So it's a bunch of guys that every Saturday, they have 5 box trucks, 4 of which were donated by a parishioner, and a pickup truck, and they go around and collect gently used furniture and beds and stuff, and then they also deliver it to people, clients from their food pantry or from clients through Catholic Charities and so on, who are newly housed and don't have any kind of furniture, so they distribute that. So we've got a lot of good stuff going on. Again, you can subscribe, ChicagoCatholic.com. And back to Meg. So Meg, tell people again, if they want to come and visit, what they should do.
Yeah, so you can go to our website, which is archives.archchicago.org, and see the kinds of collections that we have available for anybody to come look at. We also have a great digital exhibit up there right now about Slovenian parishes in the Archdiocese, closed Slovenian churches that we have the collections for here. You can send me an email to mrhall@archchicago.org. Just let me know what you're interested in, what you might think you might want to take a look at. I probably will have some ideas for you too. Or you can call us. Our general line is 312-534-4420. That'll get you to the archives office.
And I saw the little stamp. You take volunteers?
Yeah, we have taken volunteers. We've taken volunteers and interns. It depends on what projects we have going on right now. And right now, actually, I should probably come up with some projects for some interns and volunteers to work on. That's a good idea. But yeah, we'll definitely take some help.
So there's more than enough, I'm sure, that you have to go through. So okay, Thanks so much, Meg. It's been a pleasure, and thanks everybody for tuning in. You're welcome. And until next time, have a good week. Bye.